I don't think that's supposed to be like that. Looks like we're going to need to get a different tire before we can put out any soybeans. So that might be the first project this morning. Need to do a couple things on the truck, nothing serious, but hopefully be able to get a load on there later this morning or at least early afternoon and start hauling and get that bin empty today, tomorrow. Well, it took longer than it should have, but we have a tire. It's not quite the right size. 15-inch tires are sort of hard to find anymore since all passenger vehicles are going to 20s or 16s or 18s or 17s, and a lot of farm equipment still has 15-inch wheels. This was what we had available, which is some stuff that I took off of the vehicle a few months ago. However, the first one that I grabbed out of the spare tire pile had a bad spot in the sidewall. So then got to run back home to get that, to take to the tire shop to get mounted. And after I put it on here, I noticed that there's some play. If I can show it or not. You can hear it kind of rock. So probably should take that wheel or that hub apart and repack and tighten the bearings. Today's day, so we're gonna set her on the ground and get back to what I was hoping to do an hour and a half ago. Well, in the theme of what I think is a minor project becoming somewhat more involved, what I'm trying to do on this thing, it seems like we have a little bit more play in the steering than we should, and we replaced the universal joint in the steering shaft last year because there was definitely some play in there, and it seemed better but still not quite right and maybe getting looser. Not sure. We don't drive it very often, so it's sort of hard to make judgments of things changing over time because we're not used to it that much. Anyway, it seemed like there's some slop between when the steering shaft moves and when the pitman arm moves down here. And there's an adjustment on the back side of this that's a screw with a jam nut, which should be not a big deal to adjust, except that it's wedged back in between the frame. And I thought there was a hole to be able to reach through to that jam screw. There isn't. So basically I've been laying underneath here with crap falling in my face for the last hour approximately, trying to get the thing broken loose and then get that screw turned without the nut turning. So I think I have it better. I don't know if I have it right. Let's see if I can get a video or show on the video. We'll maybe try to annotate it. There's a screw right in the middle of the back side there, with a jam nut on it. There's about half inch, 5/8 of an inch to reach up in there, and bolts and brackets and everything else where you can't get a wrench to turn very far. So part of the battle was figuring out a way to get onto the flats on that jam nut. So this is where having a variety of wrenches comes in handy, because you can have different angles. These are actually about the same, but the one that I started out with was a little bit straighter, I think. So like by flipping the wrench over, you can sort of get a different range of grab on that hex nut. But in some cases a straighter wrench works better, in some cases one with more angle works better. So having a few to be able to try different stuff, I guess, is good. The alternative would be that I'd have to rip and take off all of these big bolts, and I didn't think that seemed like it was going to be a lot of fun. So the needle-nose vice grips and the variety of wrenches came to the rescue, I guess, although it still was a lot more involved than getting closer to ready to go. I got the sprayer hook from the tractor, switched to PTO, but the bin that we're going to, we need the PTO shaft on this side of the auger, which means I gotta flip the gearbox over, which means I have to take out bolts that hold in that shield and some tiny ones underneath that are a real treat, and then flip the whole thing over and swap the plug that's a hex plug like that on the bottom side with the vent so that the oil doesn't run out, and then the PTO shaft will be on this side. Alright, we're in business, and gearbox full of oil, although we ruined our rusty patina with the gear oil sliding down the side there. She's a beaut, Clark. Alright, we're over at the bin site. This bin is old, no electricity over here. Kind of an oddball actually, because it's vertical sheets. The floor, I guess, is sort of oddball also. The guy that hauled quite a bit of grain for us before we bought our own truck, who has been in most of the bins in the countryside, had never seen one like that. Instead of being strips that lock together like most of them, it's like probably 4-foot wide sheets that I think are half the width of the bin or something like that. Kind of strange. Anyway, no electricity over here, so how do you get the grain out of the bin? Normally there's a motor here. We have a hydraulic motor. So we rigged this up 3 or 4 years ago when we started using this bin again, after when it was used before there was electricity here. So we rigged up this hydraulic motor. We got some long hoses on there. Finding a spot to just stash the wire here. So we got some long hoses on here, and then so we'll run those to the tractor outlet, and then we've got this removable motor plate. So this is the same style as our Nico sweep augers, and Dad had an extra, I believe, so we, or actually the motor that was on here maybe had one, because it looks like this was painted. So we must have just had this piece extra, and then rigged this up, which, as luck would have it, had this bracket already sitting in a pile of junk that used to be used to run an old elevator, I believe, which would have been originally used for ear corn. We used it, one for shelled corn for a while, and maybe ran some straw bales of it. I don't know if we used that one in straw or not, but anyway. So this has slots there at the front that lock in, so basically we can take this home and put it inside and don't have to worry about it growing legs and walking out. And then these wing nuts just come up. There's a carriage bolt that locks into a slot. Trying to pull the bolt up while tightening the half busted wing nut here. Except I need to put the belt on anyway. So anyway, as we lock those down, we should have the belt on here, and then it will tighten. Getting ahead of myself, all because I have a camera in my hand. There we go. Now, these guys. It's pretty snug. So if we needed to tighten it further, we would use these bolts to adjust the pressure that, or basically the distance from the auger to this bottom plate that the motor plate attaches into. So I need to get the bottom under the auger here dug out a little bit so that the auger will fit under there, so that that auger will fit under this auger. And then get the tractor in position, get the auger cranked up, see if our traps will open. So these rods here open up the trap doors inside that let grain down into the auger, so we normally have that closed because you don't want mice running up and eating grain all winter and pulling it out and stuff like that. Those sometimes will kind of stick. This is a smaller bin. It'll hold about 6,000 bushels if it's clear full. We have something less than 5 in it now, a little over 4,000 I think, but soybeans, so more pounds in a bushel. Usually it doesn't cause as much problem in this bin, but I've got a bar to pry those out if they stick. But I want to run the auger and make sure that everything's working and turning in the right direction with this guy before I do anything with that. Yeah, it's Thursday morning, July 9th, I believe today is. Had a few setbacks yesterday, the last of which was blowing out a drive tire. So the front axle on this truck had recaps on it when I bought it, and they looked pretty good, but we lost one yesterday, so now we got 4 new virgin foreign tires, but they tell me that they don't shed the tread like the retreads do, so that'll be good, I guess. So we're getting ready to load the second load, take it to town. Hoping that I can get this bin empty today, but it kind of depends how fast the elevator fills up, because they basically use the soybeans for a feed mill and they're only using a certain number of bushels a day. All right, Alright, so the way this works with the hydraulic driven unload, we just have it on remote 1 here. The hydraulic motor, you normally want to go between float and on and not put it into neutral because it can blow out seals if you stop it abruptly. So what we're going to do is just kick on the PTO here at low RPM. So throttle here, PTO on the yellow. And we'll go ahead and throttle up a little bit. And then when I pull this lever back, give you a little better view. And we're loading beans. I actually like this hydraulic motor setup pretty well. We do have electric motors on all the bins at the main site, but really this is pretty handy because you can run everything from the tractor cab. You don't have to run around throttling up the tractor and flipping the switch and stuff. I don't know if it's as efficient. Hydraulics generally are not a super efficient way to transfer power, but you're also not transmitting electricity from the power plant, so maybe it's okay. But it is pretty handy. The only downside is we have to use this tractor because the little John Deere... Sorry, I thought I didn't have much soybeans coming out there for a second. Because the little tractor that we usually run on the truck auger doesn't have hydraulics. Or it has 3-point, but that's it, no outlets. So we have to use this tractor to run the hydraulic motor on this auger, which then means it can't be on the sprayer or the mower or whatever else we want to use it for. But other than that, I really like this setup, and if we were set up for it, we could use the same hydraulic motor for all of the bins and not have any motors on it. But I don't know how well it'd work with a bigger bin either, because this is not a very long auger that it's pulling out. We got 2 loads of beans hauled today successfully. No major problems. We got the sweep auger in, and the truck's full again. I got the top closed, so I don't know if you'll be able to see. We got about halfway around. So with this setup, we have the hydraulic motor right there to run the unload auger, but we still have electric sweep, which we run off a generator, and the generator was being a little bit temperamental today. Thought we had spark plug problems. I think it may have actually been old gas. We did switch out the spark plug, but it seemed like it actually started running right after we topped it off with some fresh gas. So anyway, I would love to take this to town, and normally would have time to, but the elevator's full of beans and aren't taking any more until Monday. And I'm going to be gone Monday. So that means probably we're 10 days from actually getting this truck to an elevator, and then have half a load left in the bottom of the bin. So the game plan is we're gonna park the truck at home, and either Dad can take it sometime next week or I'll take it the week following, and then pull the auger out of the hole, clean out the hole so that those beans don't get rotten and smelly, and then take the tractor home just so it's not sitting over here for a week and a half also. But that's pretty much where we're at. Probably about the end of today's adventures, or at least I hope. So I'm holding the camera straight up and down, but the tractor is a little tilted at the moment. We're mowing road ditches with push hog. I don't know if we'll be able to see very well there. Some of this earlier corn is starting to tassel, which is the pollen producing part of a corn plant that comes out the top. You can kind of see there's one right there poking out, a few coming up here. Not full tassel by any means, but definitely getting started. The mower seems to be holding together so